All right, we will call the meeting to order. Jen, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Thill.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no appearances or acknowledgements, is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent calendar?
Make a motion we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under old business, number 1, 5:30, hearing upon the application for the sale of alcoholic beverages, temporary alcohol license for the Madison Fire Department. And I see Randy is here. Did you want to address this, Randy?
Again, yes. The fire department's asking the commission for their approval for an alcohol license for our annual Fireman's Dance. It's our 46th annual Fireman's Dance. We got it scheduled for April 6th this year. Runs from 9 to 1. And I guess this year, as in the
City Armory?
Correct, in the City Armory. And this year, same as in the past, nobody under 21 is allowed in there. We will be carding, and the PD will be there for our security. And me and Jen are working on our liability, or our special event.
License because of the alcohol.
Oh, sure.
Special event license. That application has been completed and forwarded to the Public Assurance and License, so we're just waiting on that.
And shouldn't be an issue with it arriving on time, so, yeah. All right.
40.
Questions or comments?
46.
46th
46th
annual.
annual.
Wow, that's
So-
awesome.
So I'm going to make the assumption you weren't at the first few.
Nope, I bet Bob was.
Not legally.
So has there ever been a fire?
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there has.
Yeah, so,
I thought you'd be immune then.
Yeah,
But you know, what's
you would
really
think,
not
right?
fair is we used to have to carry heavy tables from down here, down them steps.
Right. Yep.
so.
Yep. So.
You
All
think they
right.
should still do that?
No, they got them light
Make them
ones
do it now,
down.
or should we put up some weights so they can move some weights in there or something? Or?
Other questions or comments? All right, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the application for the alcohol beverage license for the Madison Fire Department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, hearing for the demolition of 705 and 709 North Egan Avenue. And I know we have people here that would like to speak, and we do want you to do that because this is a hearing to gather information to send to the State Historical Preservation Office. We have received some written, and if you have something in writing and that would be appreciated. Otherwise, we will use what's on our recording tonight to present to the State Historic Preservation Office. And this is dealing with the demolition only of 705 and 709 North Egan. So at this time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone who would like to speak to it? Wilson?
I didn't necessarily want to go first.
Would you please come to the microphone? And the reason is that way people at home can hear better. And,
Sure.
so-
I'm here on behalf of Tim and Colleen Tucker, who live across the street from the proposed permits for demolition. And I'll start out by saying they don't know if they're opposed to this or not. Their question is, if the demolition, first of all, is it necessary? And that, I think, is under the rules from the historical society or preservation district has rules, and there's an attorney general's opinion. I'm sure David's read it. The goal is to do the least harm to the district as possible, and if you can renovate all that. And I've read their demolition permits and their estimated costs, and I might question them, but we're really not here to fight that. What Tucker's would like to know is what's going to go in afterwards. And I have received a number of emails from Tucker's, one of which is from someone who attended a prior meeting, David. This is kind of directed at you, where it was stated that the city attorney was very clear that the hearing could only cover the demolition, not the plans for the property.
Wilson, I made that statement about tonight's hearing.
Okay, good. I didn't know. Yeah, all right.
That was about tonight's hearing.
All right.
And you know this, Wilson, and I'm sure the Tuckers do as well, that the Historical Preservation Office needs to comment and render an opinion.
Correct.
They aren't prepared to do that yet. They've asked us, and we're trying to follow their rules, to gather information to present to them, and then we'll await their opinion or their comments. And that's really what tonight's hearing is about.
Okay. Is there a way, to your knowledge, that we can have the developer be more specific as to what they plan to put in if they're allowed to have this demolition of these two buildings?
And if I might address that, that becomes the second step, going to the State Historical Preservation Office. Because whether this is allowed or not allowed, or if this property is allowed to be sold and moved, then the process starts over again on what is it you're going to put there, and then all the information will be gathering again to send out for their approval.
Okay, Roy, so my question is, if the commission receives what they consider appropriate answers to the questions that would have to be addressed for the Historical Society regulations, and they grant the permits, each two separate permits to destroy these houses, and then we find out that what they have proposed to put in there would be objectionable to my clients. Has the developer already torn these buildings down? Is it too late to contest the demolition?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a problem. And I don't know if anyone's here from the developer. I would hope there is someone
There
here.
is, yes.
Good, yeah. We'd like to talk. My clients.
Okay, but at this point in time, what we're doing tonight is for the State Historical Preservation Office, and the only thing they want us to address tonight is demolition only. Now, you can visit with the developer and that, afterwards, but at this point in time, we want this to stay focused on demolition only, because that's what SHPO wants, is
Okay.
they want.
But you're not going to vote on that today.
We are just gathering information, sending it to
Yeah.
Pier. We won't be
The
voting on
comments-
anything.
The comments from the public tonight, including
Yes.
people like you, whether you're here on behalf of yourself or your clients, are going to be forwarded to the Historical Preservation Office so
Yes.
that they can render an opinion or a comment with respect to the demo permits.
Okay. And again, I'll repeat what I started out by saying. My clients don't know if they want to object or not. I mean, they just want to know more.
Well, and the no more will come later, after the decision. Now, I'm going to just make and say that, yes, they allowed them to move off the building and that and get ready to build something new. Whatever they're going to put on their new has to be approved again through SHPO. The same process, and that gather information that has to fit in with the neighborhood and so forth, whatever their guidelines are for what's being built. Because if you recall, a year ago, it was proposed for this to happen, and 40, I'm going to say, 40, small apartments go in there, and that did not go. So this is a first step, and I, as mayor, am trying to keep it so that it's on task what SHPO wants for comments on demolition only at this point in time.
I think that the public, whether it's your clients or anyone else, need to think about are they objecting to the concept of 2 vacant lots there? Not about what might be there at some point in the future, but is there an objection, and what are those objections to 2 vacant lots?
And from my discussions with them, I go back to what they'd like to know what's going in before they object to people tearing down those houses. And I understand what you're saying, Roy, and you're trying to focus on
Yes.
the demolition only. Unfortunately, that might result in something like a writ of prohibition or some kind of action trying to find out, basically an automatic stay order of some type, till we know what's going in. And I think maybe I can solve that by talking to the developers. So
I'm
I'm
not
gonna go
going
on
to
record
disagree
as-
with you, but I'm going to ask you to do that outside the meeting.
I don't
I
want
think there's some concern though, in that, Wilson, you could sit down with a developer tonight, and I have no idea what the developer has planned or has prepared, but he could show you a pretty picture of something and say, this is what we want to do. SHPO might say no, the commission might say no, zoning might say no. There's all sorts of issues that could come up. So any statements that the developer makes tonight, or to you, or to this body about, well, this is what's coming, that's totally premature. None of that's been approved, not by this body or other bodies that will have a say in that.
Well, I understand that, David, and I guess what we have here is somewhat a failure to communicate. Cool
I
hand.
disagree, because this
Yeah.
really isn't something that's required by law, but it's something that we definitely want to do to protect our back pockets.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to visit with those folks.
Sure.
That's the bottom
Eh,
line. And at this point,
yes.
My clients would probably be opposed to the demolition, and for whatever reason, but one of them obviously is they don't know what's the plan going in there. So they're opposed.
And I can appreciate that, and that will be passed on to SHPO.
We will certainly share these concerns with SHPO. We have a duty to do that, we believe,
Yeah.
under their rules.
Right.
And that's why we're having this hearing.
Well, and I would have talked particularly to you, David, earlier. I didn't find out that I was going to be here until Thursday night.
Well, and
So-
one of the things in that, that I want to bring you up to speed on is during this whole process since last year to this year, and that I've kept in contact with the neighbors, and there's 2 of them sitting behind you in that can attest to that. So there isn't anything in that, that communication-wise that we've, tried to hide from anyone. We want it all.
No,
out
I
in
don't
the
think
open.
anybody has.
No,
It's just that I'm
but
not.
I mean, even Tucker's and that, I
Yeah.
know they're out of town. We've been emailing back and forth so that they are aware of what's going on.
The problem is that, well, I don't want to say it's a problem. I just want everyone to understand that any plans that the developer may have are only that. There's been no approval, there's been no consents, there's been no nothing. So the developer could show you, Wilson, something that your clients love or hate, and it could all change.
Or not. It might not change.
Sure.
And I don't know why I couldn't enter into a contract with my clients and the developers that we will not object if certain things are put in there. And we'd have a civil contract to protect their interests and hopefully to not be objecting to what's going on. So that, they're just, they feel like they don't know what's happening and they want to know before they have lost their rights to object.
Totally understood.
But no one knows what's going on there.
Yeah, totally understood.
I think the developers have an idea.
They have an idea.
They have a
Well, we had
hope.
an idea.
They have an
before.
idea, they have a hope. I'm sure of that. But again, we have to go through this process first to find out, number one,
Understand.
can they demo?
Right, yeah.
And then we start the process over again, where they have to present what they're looking at to SHPO and get approval for what's going in, and how it will look and affect the neighborhood that's there. So, and I really appreciate you being here on their behalf. 'Cause
Well,
I know
and
they're out of
again,
town.
they don't know if they object or not. So I'm here kind of objecting, but not really.
Yes.
But kind of.
So-
Okay.
Should we
Thank
listen to
you.
what the developer property owner has to say?
At this point in time in that, we want to keep it to demolition only.
Right.
You know.
But
Yeah.
But if
And
they
so-
want to talk, they certainly can.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dustin?
Yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to add
Regarding the
regarding
demo?
the demolition?
No, I mean,
I can talk a little bit, but.
And the one thing that maybe I'll ask you in that to address a little bit is, I read through and that, your costs of repairing the current facilities and that, and Wilson said he had a little bit of a question on that. So
Yeah.
that may be one of the things that you could address and how you came up with those numbers.
Well, those numbers, I deal with contractors constantly, so I know how much something costs. I do remodels all the time as well, so I have a really good estimating of costs. I'm within 10%, and there's a lot of costs that I didn't even apply for as far as like lead and different type of testings that we didn't even count in there. And then there was a couple of things, did we want to demo all of the lath and plaster? So I did have that in there, but I don't know if that's actually accurate. But then if we don't demo the lath and plaster, it raises all of our other costs of insulating and then fishing wires and pipes. So I figured it was a wash to either way to estimate it out like that. But we also, I can't actually get an accurate down to it costs us a lot of money to do a really, really accurate estimate, and we'd have to produce plans and everything. And I'm within 10% when I estimate.
Okay. And the estimate, if I remember right, I could look it up, was somewhere around $830,000.
Yeah, it's about $800,000.
So you're off plus or minus $80,000
Yep.
in the 10%.
Right.
So, and if you'd like to address, the other things, that on the demolition side of it that you're looking at.
If we did take into account that we would have to remove all the existing structures, there's a huge front porch that would also have to get added back in. So I don't know if you noticed, but the whole front porch is missing. That in itself, to get that detailing, is probably $100,000 just for that front porch with the kind of detailing that it requires to get it back to the Victorian era.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing the project yourself for a passion, then these houses aren't really rehabable. And these two houses are, the one, in my opinion, the small ones, doesn't really even fit the neighborhood anyways. It doesn't have the shape or anything. And the other one was a very nice house, back in its day, but they've added so many kitchens and bathrooms and compartmentalized it. It basically needs to be completely gutted to bring it back. And you pretty much have to do it yourself, I would say, to do it feasibly.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to your request for demolition?
Do people in the neighborhood think it's better that it's vacant now, or is it worse?
Well, you have two of the neighbors that are sitting right back here behind you.
Parking is better, but.
I mean,
you got
overall,
the construction at Mad Labs.
Yeah.
So on that side of the street, and right by their house, on 6th Street, it's a mess.
Right.
Now they're gonna close down another block up to the Mount Library here a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
It's not really a fair time.
Yeah.
You
to
can't
give
judge
an
it.
opinion because
Yeah.
it's not a realistic, the street's closed and then now the other street's gonna be closed. So parking is an issue anyway for campus students. And then we have, just without people there, of course, those are less cars coming in and out of that driveway, but that hasn't been much of an issue, except for, of course, when there's people going in the back, that wasn't an issue because those cars, most of them could get off the street.
Right, they park in the back.
So it's hard to say right now,
Did you know it was in the historical district when you bought it?
I didn't buy it. Someone else, one of the investors bought it.
Did they know?
Yeah, I believe so. We've known for a while that it's in the historical neighborhood, yes.
Well, again, I don't know if I'm.
Wilson, could I ask you to come closer to the microphone, please? It's not that great at picking up sound, and so it is very important that we be able to understand, what's heard on the recording.
Well, I'm no contractor. I'm looking at the cost of remodeling the smaller home, which you have a total of $286,000 on.
Yep.
And my first question, I guess, is to Chad Comas. Is there a requirement that the foundation be raised because of the floodplain?
Generally speaking, I would say, I don't know until we can get an elevation certificate, but any improvements over 50% of the value, and it's supposed to be the floor elevation or the if there's no basement, the ground floor needs to be 2 foot above the floodplain. And I don't know what
So you're
that
not
is.
grandfathered in for that?
Once you go,
Over 50%?
correct, if you're
you
doing
lose
under
that.
50%, then you can, yeah.
Well, I just noticed that, and,
I mean, you,
I know, I don't want to nitpick your bill. I
I'm just think-
reshingled my house.
Yeah.
My house has got a bigger roof.
so these are historical materials too, so you're talking about wood shake roof, because you're in the historic district to bring it back to what it was originally intended to be. And
Does
lift
it
up.
have currently asphalt shingles?
Yeah,
So you can't replace the asphalt shingles?
well, you could, but if it's historic, you want to bring it back to historic.
Okay, but I mean, your cost there is for a roof that's half the size of my house.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately had the experience of putting a new roof on my house after a hailstorm. Fortunately, I had insurance. But that cost more than it was to reshingle my house, which is got a substantially larger roof. I just glance at some of those things, and it looks to me like these costs are inflated. And I'm not a contractor. I haven't had anybody else look at it. So, but I wanted to mention that. But they did know when they went into this that this property was in the historical district.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I do want to talk to you afterwards.
Okay. But yeah, so I'm figuring if we're gonna do them right, we're gonna remodel them accurately to the historic time period. You could remodel them much cheaper, but, you know, are you bringing them back to historic value and preservation, or are you just looking to do a cheap remodel, I guess? And I took it as you gotta bring them back to the historic preservation, what they would want. So, and then the new plans, we didn't require, like, the new plans, we made them so they're gonna fit, you know, and we have to go through SHPO. So SHPO, what they determine that fits, I mean, they're pretty critical on everything. So for them to pass something, it's gonna have to look really good. And we've had them pass our stuff in Brookings, so when we work as closely as we can with them. So. I don't know if there's anything else.
Chad?
If I may add just a little bit too, I won't get into all the background, just to say that the building permit application and the supporting information originally submitted were in the agenda packet. Also, the letter from SHPO and then some follow-up submittals from the applicant were also in the agenda packet. But the only
And online for people.
Correct,
to see
correct,
them.
and I did share them with Mr.
Yes.
Flybecker as well. The only thing I'll say, I know this is, I know, Mayor, you want to keep this definitely to the demolition permit, which it seems appropriate. However, there is a bit of information that the applicant submitted with the demo permit that talks a little bit about what they may do. Just as a matter of fact, it was included in what was submitted, so whether that's something one can consider or not, I'm not sure. But it was actually submitted as part of the application for demo.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please, please.
Thank you.
I'm
And Lois?
Yep,
Yes.
I'm Lois Sneedert. I live at 622 North Egan Avenue,
Thank
so across the street. And I just want to say that working with the Historical Society is what we did when we purchased our house, and it had been on the market for 3 years. It had been, I think the neighbors at that time were going to talk about tearing it down. I know the Historical Society is easy to work with if you follow their rules and guidelines, and they are very helpful. I know in this application that I would just hope that that before you approve the application, that you make sure that those guidelines are followed as far as considering both properties separately, because one property is considered not contributing in the historical district. One property is considered contributing in the historical district. So to make sure that they meet the criteria that's the law says of what can constitute allowing a demolition or not. And I don't know that that's been done or not. I didn't see the other attachments with, you know, if an engineer comes through and does that, make that decision or not. But just, I would hope that that process is followed before anything is approved.
Well, this is the first time that we've tackled anything like this. And so we're relying on the State Preservation Society in that to give us guidance. We're going to supply them with all the information they're asking for. And then once they make a decision on, what can and can't be done, it'd probably be my guess that this commission would follow that quite closely. So there will not be any demolition permit issued until there is a final ruling and that, on what can and can't be done from the State Historical Preservation Office. So this right now is just gathering information. I'm sorry, Wilson.
I'm sorry to interrupt. When you get to that point where the state is blessed it, so to speak, will it be another public hearing?
Yes,
Yeah.
there will.
I don't know if it'll be a hearing, but perhaps an agenda item, perhaps.
It would be an agenda item on an agenda, not necessarily,
There will
because we
certainly be
wouldn't
an
be
opportunity to
gathering.
be heard if we're not calling it a formal hearing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
We, at that point in time, we probably wouldn't have any more information gathering. It would just be, do we, see where they're coming from and go from basically their recommendations.
How does it become an agenda item? I don't recall this. I thought demolition permits were administrative process. Would it be a neighbor
That's
objecting to the
a good
permit?
question. I don't know the answer to that exactly. I think we need to have some dialogue with our attorney, because typically building permits are administrative, but because of the nature of the historical district and some of the statutes, et cetera, that Mr. Tucker cited in his letter, we wanted to proceed in the abundance of caution to make sure we were complying with all the different rules and regulations, if you will, for this matter. And so that's why it's moved into these proceedings, so to speak.
Well, it's a unique situation, too.
Very. I have a question for anybody that wants to speak to this issue, or my fellow brethren up here in the gallery. Or is that the gallery? And this is the shooting gallery. I don't know. Just speaking to the demolition, because I think there are two issues we face: is the unknown, and then there's the demolition, which is what we're speaking to tonight. Is there anybody that believes, for any reason, that property would be better off served with just the demolition of those houses? In other words, if somebody wasn't looking at building on that right now, is there anybody that believes, if we're getting rid of two of those places, we'd be better off without them? And the unknown. And can you speak to that, why you feel about it? How you feel? I mean, that is a logical question, is it not?
Is it vacant?
What?
Vacant?
Vacant. I don't know. Maybe I hate them so much because they aren't painted or they aren't well cared for, and they might as well not be there. I'm just asking a question relative to the demolition. Is there anybody that has any opinion about that? Because one, we obviously know does not fit the historical society thing, so that's kind of a...
I guess the one thing that I would bring up would be the investment. It's obvious that the people that purchased this property probably did not receive it for zero. And they would probably have quite an investment in removing the two properties, which means that they would be two expensive vacant lots.
It's just a question about the actual demolition. What does anybody want to just think this property is not well cared for? We'd be better off without having those two buildings there.
I don't feel at liberty to give an opinion of my client since they didn't ask them any questions, Kelly.
Not for office. I understand what you're saying, Wilson. It's hard to know. It's kind of a no man's land. I think that would be for anybody, but it's worth thinking about too. We could issue a demolition permit, and then the objection could be so high, or civil suit, or whatever the case may occur. I don't know. None of us can call that. At this point, no one can. But what, I'm just interested in knowing, are those properties not well cared for enough, or whatever the case may be?
Wilson, I know you'll look at the statute, but there is an appellate procedure for this issue. So if SHPO came back and said, can't knock them down, the city can overrule that. It would take a majority vote of this commission, but they can overrule that, and they can do that by making some specific findings. They have to submit those to SHPO, But then, after that's done, there's also any, and the statute cites any aggrieved party can appeal this commission's decision to either, they could appeal even if we were following SHPO's recommendation, or if we bucked it and said, we're gonna go another direction. But there is an administrative appellate procedure, and because there is, I would intend to instruct the commission, they can take my advice or not, but I would instruct them to schedule this as an agenda item, as a hearing, so that people could appear and verbally, there'll have to be a writing as well, but verbally appeal as well. We've got a due process responsibility here.
I did read the Attorney General's report, and that seems to be contrary, if there's a feasible and proven alternative. And
look at 119A-11.
Yeah, and then that's the comment that he's commenting on. Looking at the AG's opinion, it says short answer. That's the one I went to, not the long answer. Yeah. So anyway, we're not looking.
This was also an opinion on Rapid City.
Well, and I think the thing is, we just want it to be so easy. We appreciate that there's a process in place, because for those of us that have redone our properties and invested in them and updated them and made changes, we want that neighborhood to stay a nice neighborhood that has some special features in it that make it that special neighborhood. And I think for those of us who do live there, obviously we want to be neighborly, but yet we don't want something that is going to be a situation where there's so many cars and people and coming and going that the law enforcement gets to be an issue, parking gets to be an issue. That was the original concern of why we, just put a fight against the first.
It will be a unique feature.
And so then, and we want it to fit in the neighborhood, obviously. It's going to be hard with a brand-new big building across the street, but, for those of us that have done that, we still appreciate that and would like to be neighborly and just know that something there. And I know we can't do that tonight, and I know it's not dependent on that, but to take all those things into consideration would be helpful.
And Lois, if I might ask, in that, when you purchased your home, had it still been used as a residence, or had it been made into apartments like the one we're discussing?
It was apartments for 40 years.
Okay, and approximately?
And we reverted it back to one home.
Very good. Because I know that would be the next question was, well, what was their house like prior? So.
Yep. Yep. So.
Thank you.
May I ask, Ms. Nieder, if you could, we'd very much appreciate if you give us written comments, because we would like to forward them to, if that's all right.
Yeah.
They specifically, I should say SHPO specifically asked for any written comments, so anything we would provide would be appreciated.
John?
Not right now.
Okay.
I'll probably get some written comments wrote up.
Thank you.
I just want to hear what was
Thank you.
brought up.
And then Chad, if you could give them an idea on timeline as to when this is going to be forwarded?
I anticipated there'd be some discussion tonight and perhaps some follow-up written comments that we would look to receive. I think if it's for the parties, it could get them by the end of the week. I think that would be reasonable.
And that's what I was looking for, is a timeline and that. So, you'd give them to the end of this week and that to get written comments, and then not plan on sending the comments we've received to Pierre till probably the first of the week.
Correct.
Okay?
Can you take comments from individuals who are not here?
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
That's part of the reason we put it
In fact,
in
fact, we have comments, written from two that are not here. You're representing one of them, and then we have another gentleman that's in the district that did send in a comment, written comment, and is not present in the room. So.
Pro and con.
Yeah. Stacy, did you have anything you'd like to add, or questions to ask?
No, not really.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind coming up.
Sure.
Please.
Just Stacy Kersmark with Dakota State University, and I just wanted to attend. Obviously, we are neighbors to the east of the property, and thank Dustin for sharing information with the university on what their plans and ideas were. I don't think it's any secret from the university perspective and from the community for that matter that we're growing. There's need for development. We as a university want to be supportive of those people or individuals or companies that are trying to develop. Obviously, this is a little more challenging with the State Historic Preservation Office and the rules that govern that. We're experienced in that process as well with the Madison Cyber Labs being constructed within the historic district and going through that process. So just, we wanted to say as a university, we're supportive of the idea of developing property like this for the housing needs in the area, but obviously need to work through that process, encourage the communication within the community and the residents. And I think that's the key, is making sure that communication is happening so they understand what is being proposed, what the ideas are, what the processes are, and again, we don't necessarily have a specific complaint or issue with the demolition, but and certainly want to support the idea of any growth in housing as we continue to grow.
Very good.
Stacy, and I'm sure I speak for the commission when I say you probably understand the nature of this, the way it's been moved forward to us at this point, and there could be other projects in the future, and the way we decide this for the community as well as for the university has a great deal to do with setting the tone for other things that we approach in the future. So I'm sure you can appreciate that.
I can very much appreciate the president's side of same issues.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was one of the things in that that we discussed, is we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity in that to ask their questions, give their comments, and that because this is something that we've not tackled in before in the city of Madison. And as Commissioner Johnson just said, that the process we're going through now does set a precedence for what could happen again in the future. We just don't know. So we want to make sure that everyone has input, and that we're doing everything that is required under law, and getting the information to the State Historical Preservation Office, and then we'll take their guidance and make decisions in that after they've had a chance to review all the comments and the proposals. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, if not, then I really want to thank everyone for being here, and for those of you that are here, and for those of you that are at home, please get any comments in that into the city engineer's office prior to Friday of this week, so that we can send those written comments to Pierre in that the first of the next week. So really appreciate it, and with that, we're going to move on to new business. Thank you, everyone. Under new business, approve the application for the sale of alcoholic beverages, temporary alcohol license, Madison Fire Department.
We already did that.
We actually, we had the hearing.
Mr.
and
Mayor,
then
you
I did call for it. You're right.
earlier,
So we will move on, that is approved. Authorize the mayor to sign the sponsor certification checklist with the FAA AIP Grant Oversight Risk Assessment. Chad, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I can talk to this some as well. This is a typical form that FAA requires us to review and provide back to them. In this, I believe it's every 2 years or with every grant that we receive, one or both of those. And so we just check the boxes that apply and then ask the mayor to sign it and proceed. Oftentimes these checklists, there's many others checklists that come with these grant projects. Oftentimes those are rolled into the approval and the signing process, if you will, when you're signing the grant agreements and so on. This one, FAA brought to our attention specifically and separately, I believe due to an expiration of a timeline, so to speak. So We've signed these before. I believe, Jen, if you have anything to add too, you also went through and reviewed these as well. Is that,
Yes.
do you have any comments?
My office, Tracy in my office, worked with Brian at KLJ on this also, just for a little bit better understanding. Yes, this is basically a process. It's a housekeeping mechanism, and you'll see it's basically a checklist about our internal controls environment. We're comfortable?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign sponsor certificate checklist, Federal Aviation Administration, AIP grant oversight risk assessment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bid number 8082, set bid date, Water Main Improvement Project 2019-3. Chad or Brad?
I can talk about that some.
Okay.
We've been working in our office to prepare a set of plans for the upgrades on 6th Street from Egan to Washington Avenue, and on Summit Avenue from 9th to 11th Street. The main work there is going to be water main improvement, but then we're also replacing the entire surface on both streets as well with some miscellaneous, I'll call it miscellaneous because it's a much smaller percentage of the work. Storm sewer, replacing some drop inlets and some drainage remedies, if you will, or as we're tearing out the curb and gutter around the radiuses and such. And then ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act improvements as well. So these were areas, particularly 6th Street, where we coordinated with DSU as they were putting in their Mad Labs facility to fire flow was a concern, and this was this is an area where there's 4-inch lines, and so we've been wanting to upgrade those throughout town anyway, so we moved this up to try to be responsive to some of those things. And then as far as Summit Avenue, there's just been a fair amount of breaks up there over the years, and of course if you've driven up in that area, you know that the street, there's some issues with the subgrade materials and such, and it moves quite a bit in the winter time, and it's not a good situation. So we are tackling these two areas with water main improvements this year. So, and I still, in the budget is about $730,000 for these projects. At this point in time, I'm still confident in that estimate. I will continue to refine that as we get closer to bid day and such like that. So.
Okay. Brad, do you have anything more to add to it? All right. Questions or comments?
In agenda, you got Lincoln Avenue instead of Summit. You want to make a correction on that?
Is that on in the
advertisement
notice?
Paragraph.
Okay. Yeah, we will correct that. It's not Lincoln Avenue, it's Summit Avenue. And there's a few other minor adjustments I have for the advertisement for bids. Nothing changing the date or anything like that, but I'm working with Jen on those. As far as the date, I would still recommend the date that is included in the advertisement, 25th day of March.
It's like going into surgery and having the wrong organ removed.
Oops.
Quite that serious. Storm sewer, that's all pretty well up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty minor. I mean, it's just, there's some things on 9th and Summit that we're going to address there. We're going to put in some fillets and just some things to address that while we're there working, we're not going to just leave something that probably isn't going to last for quite a long time. And so we're going to do just mainly at 9th and Summit on that particular project.
Okay.
The main line, we're not messing with the main line.
Okay.
Other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve bid number 882, set a bid date for March 25th. Water Main Improvement Project 2019-3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, resolution number 2019-4, request the State Department of Transportation to hire Banner Associates Incorporated for bridge inspection work. And again, I'll ask Chad to address this one.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Included in the agenda packet is a memo from the state, South Dakota DOT. The bridge inspection engineer Cody Axland, and a couple supporting sheets with some attachments. Every 2 years or so, we have to go through and inspect our structures, and the DOT pays, I believe it's 90%. I apologize for not having that number before me. Yes, they pay 80%, and we pay 20%. And so we're in that point in the cycle. So I would recommend that we hire Banner Associates to do this. Part of the reason is the gentleman, Austin Engineering, did it for the last 2 cycles, I believe, maybe 3. And the gentleman who used to work for them, who did all the inspections, is now working for Banner. And so he has a lot of familiarity with our structures and such like that. And I'm relatively certain that he's also doing the county structures in the area as well. So hopefully we'll get a little bit of economy of scale with that as well. There's a retainer list, as you can see, that the state provides to pick from. And so that's my basis for that. I've visited briefly with Mr. Gagnon about it. He didn't have any objections to proceeding with Banner Associates. So I would recommend that we approve this resolution for Banner Associates to do this work.
I thought we used to have Bros do this, or is that some other bridge inspection?
No, we had Hoffman Engineering do it before Austin did it, and then Austin has done it again for the last 2 or 3 cycles. And so those are for as far as I can find in our records, those are the ones that we've.
Never mind that.
I might want to add that in order to be eligible for federal funding for any replacement, you do have to have bridge inspections and participate in that program. So it's something you want to do.
We like to have good bridges. So.
Yeah, you gotta have them. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2019-04. Request the South Dakota Department of Transportation to hire Banner Associates Incorporated for business bridge inspection work.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, under public comment, Ted was in here, and
He's not in the hallway either.
he's not in the hallway either. So he had 1051 North Summit on here, and so I don't know what his questions are on that. So since he is not present and is not in the hallway, we will move on to public announcements. Public information meeting by the South Dakota Department of Transportation for the Highway 34 construction project will be March 18th, 2019, 6 p.m. at Dakota Prairie Playhouse. So anyone that has any questions on that they would like to know about the upcoming project, I would recommend that you attend that information meeting where you can hear what their plans are and you can ask your questions. So, and I know they are planning on getting started real soon because they're already putting up the electronic signs east of Classic Corner. I visited with them today. They hope to start, and I'm going to say literally breaking ground, March 25th. So that is something that they can do, is break concrete this time of year. They don't have to wait for the frost to be out. So if you have any questions or comments, please attend that meeting. And again, it's March 18th, 2019, 6 p.m., Dakota Prairie Playhouse. And with that, do we have a motion to go into executive session? And I'm going to ask, and you came in late, did you have something that you wanted to question or?
Was there a comment on the buildings on Egan?
Yes, we had that hearing at the beginning and that, and please put your questions, concerns, whatever you'd like in writing prior to this Friday and get it to Chad's office at the engineering department, because then we will be forwarding all those comments to Pierre next week to the State Historical Preservation Office.
Okay.
So there are no decisions made by us. This is information gathering for the State Historical Preservation Office.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
In the agenda.
Okay, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
We had a motion.
We're just waiting for a second.
I made a motion.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.